Welcome to Lifing Coast to Coast, the podcast where we explore trending topics in personal development, wellness, and the art of lifing in today's ever-changing world. I'm Moderator Miki here, along with the co-hostesses with the mostesses, Dr. Lovey and Heidi. Let's get into it. Welcome back. Today, we're diving into a topic that many of us, especially high achievers, empaths, caretakers, and recovering perfectionists, know all too well. That's right, people pleasing. People pleasing might sound harmless on the surface. Who doesn't want to be liked or to help others feel good? But underneath, it can often be a deeply ingrained survival strategy rooted in fear, shame, or unworthiness that keeps us small, resentful, and disconnected from our true selves. So before we dive into some powerful coaching case studies, I want to set the stage by highlighting some less obvious warning signs that someone might be stuck in a people-pleasing pattern. Some of these may surprise you, so listen closely and notice if any of these feel familiar to you. You mainly seek acceptance and validation from outside yourself. You avoid conflict or arguments at all costs. I know I do. You dim your light just to fit in or not rock the boat. You hold yourself in low regard while putting others on a pedestal. You overextend yourself to fulfill everyone else's needs, but neglect your own. You often feel like people take advantage of your kindness. You say sorry constantly, even for small or unnecessary things. You feel responsible for other people's emotions or happiness. You constantly feel like you're walking on eggshells. You think you must have done something wrong if someone doesn't like you. And you abandon your own core values to keep the peace or gain approval. So if you're listening or watching right now and you're nodding your head, feeling a little called out, you're not alone. That's why we're here today. This is a safe space where we get to be real about it, unpack it, learn how to break free from the patterns that hold us back from being fully ourselves. So I'm going to be walking us through a few fictional case studies inspired by real coaching scenarios that reflect different shades of people pleasing, from the perfectionist parent to the burnt out business owner and an over-apologetic friend. For each one, I'm going to ask both of you, Heidi, Dr. Lovey, how you might approach supporting this person through coaching. All right, let's jump into the first case study. And we're just going to call her Karen. So Karen often says, "I'm just doing what a mom should do." Her mother's voice echoes in her memory, "Don't be selfish," every time she asks for something of her own. She was praised for being helpful, selfless, supportive, but never for her creativity, voice, or dreams. And so over time, Karen's identity fused with being needed. And through coaching, she admits feeling invisible. Her quiet resentment reveals a deeper plea. See me. Ask me how I am. Let me be a person, not just a role.
Yeah, this person felt invisible because everything that she did was for everybody else. And she had guilt for how selfish she thought it would be to take care of herself. So her core message that she was giving herself from her wound is, I only matter when people need me. Yeah. And so some of the coaching questions were things like, what are some of the parts of you that have been on hold to serve other people? Who are you beyond your roles and your responsibilities? She didn't even know who she was. When I asked her, she was a mother, she was a wife. That was it.
It's like kind of roles, it's like labels.
Yeah. She didn't know what her values were. She didn't believe that she had any strengths except to clean up and take care of people. So we began by having her schedule small moments just to herself, getting rest because she didn't feel like she could rest. She started exploring fun things that she hadn't ever tried before, dates by herself without the kids, without her husband. Her healing came with learning that she was worthy and believing it. And so affirmations, things like that. And she got to a point where she was telling herself that she deserved happiness. She deserved joy. She deserved to be seen. But she was always just doing. And she coped by taking prescription benzodiazepines. And by the time we finished, she was taking them very rarely. She wasn't taking them like she was in the beginning, because she always felt like on edge, but she had to present herself a certain way. And then she would feel guilty if she wasn't presenting herself a certain way.
How do you even begin that process with her? What's the first place you go when you start to ask her?
That is the first place, asking her questions, because there's stuff that she hasn't even said out loud. She gets so tight, and it was so hard for her to even speak because she was holding on to it so much. And so these things started coming out, and it was that core wound of, I'm not good enough. I only matter if I'm serving. She didn't even feel seen.
This is really interesting because when I first read this case study, it's not unusual at all. But when you just mentioned the benzodiazepines, and for those of you who do not know me, I have recovered from being a people pleaser. And the interesting correlation here is I too have the not good enough wound. I wasn't just like Karen, but similar. And when I was just doing for others, when I was people pleasing, my husband, my children, whoever was in our social circle, pretty much everybody, the anxiety eventually became something that was mitigated with benzodiazepines.
Wow.
And so I dealt with my internal suffering, which manifested in anxiety, with taking benzodiazepines for 10 years.
This is so interesting, Heidi, because you have openly talked about you having a hard time being an empty nester. She had a very hard time.
Yeah.
Her whole life was her kids.
Yeah.
And it was joy to her. It wasn't that she resented being a parent.
Yeah.
It's just that she didn't have anything to herself.
Yeah.
And she was basically invisible.
Yeah. I didn't feel invisible, but I felt purposeful, useful, important in my role. And when the role ended, that was a very intense time.
Yeah. It's like, what now?
And the big difference with her, she didn't have a voice. I had a voice.
Yeah.
She didn't know what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you find that people pleasing is a really big trait in mothers and parents in general?
I think so.
Mhm.
From what I've seen, people pleasing is highest among women and marginalized people, because we put on masks and we feel like we have to be a certain way, right?
And within the helping professions, I identified nurses. Many of my
Absolutely.
friends, obviously clients, a lot of them are in support roles in the medical field, and their number one issue is the people pleasing. Yeah.
How do you create a new role, for that person?
That is a great question, Miki. A lot of foundational work for me, and Dr. Lovey may have this in common, but I go back to when you were little, what lit you up? What made you happy? What did you want to do? What did you want to be? And get them integrated into reimagining who they would have been without a role superseding who they really were inside. And a lot of people, it's art or singing or, something. One client in particular was a really gifted athlete and put that all on hold to become a really gifted soccer mom.
Oh.
And then she got back into her own fitness. And then she came alive as she was in her own body, taking care of her own needs. Yeah.
And that's very you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help others. And being that mirror.
Yeah. You saying that this particular person didn't understand why her children were having some issues, self-esteem, because she was very praising and very giving. And I did this activity where I said, put your hand up like this, put it on your chin. And she, of course, she put it here because she's watching me. And I said, is this your chin? And she said, oh, no. And I said, that's what your children are doing, especially your daughters. You might be saying this to them. You might be telling them that this is how they should live their life, but they're watching how you're living your life and how small you are playing in your life.
Yeah.
And that was so impactful to her, for her to acknowledge, recognize that, because that was her motivation. That is one of her values, her children, right? And so that was a good in way with her, was through the children.
Yeah. I love the technique. You know, it's like, what are you modeling? But you illustrated that visually, which probably had the biggest impact on her. I never forgot that.
Yeah, I think so.
I love that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other really important tool with this one that you can think of, Dr. Lovey, that you might have used?
One thing that happened was people weren't happy with her in her family because they were used to the role that she played in her family, her husband more than the kids in this situation, because she was the one who was changing. And I had to keep reminding her, you're changing. He's who you chose to be with, the way that he is. And so it's going to take time for him to be okay with this and figure out what his role is in the relationship. So they did have some marital issues. And I see that a lot. Do you see that with
Oh, yeah.
marital issues?
All the time. I would say in my practice, 4 or 5 of the women who are growing and changing and reclaiming are having real issues with their spouses are not on board. They want that role to continue. And it's especially interesting in women over 50, even 60, who not only have empty nested, but are grandparents now. And it's like, what's your new role? As grandma. And they're like, yeah, but I just want to go visit my friend in Hawaii, you know?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what? And they're throwing people for a loop because they're stepping into and reclaiming themselves.
And change is hard. That's a big change. And nobody wants things to get switched up on them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then it makes them ask, what does this mean about me? Are you saying that there's something wrong with me? Are you going to leave me for somebody else? There's clients where it didn't work out and their relationship didn't end up working because one grew healthier and the other one didn't.
Yep.
Well, this is so insightful, so valuable. I'm learning a lot. We'll go to another case study and check it out. All right, let's do Marcus. So Marcus, he prides himself on being the easygoing guy. He avoids conflict, he keeps the peace, and he does what needs to be done, often without being asked. Whether it's manning the grill at every family event, or helping his wife's friends move, or fixing things around the house, Marcus is reliable, but under the surface, something is brewing. He jokes about being stuck at the barbecue while everyone else has fun, but there's tension in his voice. He pours another drink, laughs it off, keeps flipping burgers. Later, the sarcasm creeps in, the silent treatment begins. He feels underappreciated, but saying it outright feels impossible. Growing up, Marcus learned that expressing needs or anger only led to tension or withdrawal. He's internalized the message, don't rock the boat. So he became agreeable, helpful, the guy everyone could rely on, but secretly hoped someone would notice his quiet sacrifices. So in coaching, he begins to unravel his pattern. He realizes he's often doing things with unspoken strings attached. Like, if I show up, you'll appreciate me. If I give, I'll be valued. But when those expectations go unmet, his resentment builds and often shows up as passive-aggressive comments, distance, or overdrinking. This is a big example that I can think of a lot of people I know who remind me of this.
Yeah. I think that we both had this person as a client before, the one who sulks and who is the guy that does everything for everybody and enjoys that and wants to be the one who goes and fixes things. And however, it's done with expectation. And then that's when the passive aggressive stuff ends up coming out, because they are looking for something.
So Heidi, what do you think is going on underneath there? Where would you begin?
I would begin by recognizing that this person was probably never allowed to truly express their own needs. Or if they did as a child, they were told, you're being difficult, or go to your room, or some form of rejection, right? To elicit a behavior that, when you come back out, be pleasant. When you come back out, do the right thing, but those types of things are pretty common. So given the circumstances of this particular case, especially standing at the barbecue alone drinking, right? It's like, I'll just stand here and do the right thing and suffer in silence and drink my feelings away, right? And this one is pretty common when it comes to not being seen and heard or allowed to feel or express. What do you do with a client like this to get them to understand? I'm curious about this because for me, the disconnect between the pleasing and then the aggressive behaviors, like being super nice guy over here, but in reality, I kind of poking the bear,
Right.
Yeah. A little payback, really.
Yes. A little bit of payback. There are a lot of, how do they call it? Backhanded compliments.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
Looking like you're doing something for somebody, but like the example I gave earlier, can you please pass the salt? And then, oh, here you go. And passing it, but it's out of the person's reach.
Just slightly passive.
Yeah. And when I've worked with people like this, there are some people who are very conscious that they're doing that.
Yeah.
And they need to get that anger, resentment out in some way. But some of the people that I work with don't realize that they're doing that.
Right. Right. But when you point that out and they see it, right? When they recognize, that was totally me. That is what I was doing. I think the lean in from the coaching perspective is, what if you just asked for what you wanted?
Right.
What would happen if you said, I want to be appreciated for my endeavors? And a lot of people would just draw a blank with that. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Do you work on iMessages with your clients? Oh, yeah. I think that was helpful. Clear as kind.
Yeah.
Clear as kind.
Yeah. And when we say clear as kind, listeners and anyone viewing this, we mean being direct by saying, when I stand at the barbecue alone, hearing everyone laughing and having a good time, I feel unappreciated, and I would even go so far as to say sad.
Yeah, definitely. Left out, sad.
Little abandoned.
Abandoned. That's a good word. That's a good word. And that is one of the areas that I probably would work on. What's the fear? The fear is they're going to not like me. They're going to reject me.
Right.
And what's already happening is his fears, Marcus, are putting him in a position where he is being isolated and not appreciated.
Yeah.
So it's like this cycle of putting himself in the place that he's afraid of.
Yeah. And then let's highlight that he's drinking to not feel that. He's drinking to not care about how he's really feeling. Right. And so that compounds it because that's a new symptom, right? That's the tool. It's like, if I have enough beer in this cooler, I can stand at this barbecue all day and take this shit.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably when a lot of the sarcasm would probably come out. The drinking, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think the fear is just a huge part of it. I think about how I was afraid to communicate. I was just afraid to talk for so many years because I didn't want to upset anybody. And I think it's hard in that moment to see that the fear isn't actually real,
Yeah. Were you the peacemaker in your family?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. If you are the person who's been put in this role where you're the mediator and you have to keep the peace and you don't want to rock the boat like Marcus, right? Yes.
Besides talking about it, naming it, you know, the fear and this story that people are telling themselves about what would happen if they actually asserted their needs, what can they actually do to help facilitate that and rewrite that story and face the fear?
Oh, man.
So many.
Yeah. The pattern has to be broken by establishing, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this person anymore. I want to join the party, you know? And so let's equate this to the woman being in the kitchen the whole time. Well, things are going on in the other room. The joy is happening separate of them, and they are basically fulfilling duties, right? So in this particular case, if this person had been my client, I would say, surely there is someone else at these gatherings who can flip burgers. Surely, you know, who would that be? Identify that. And
He wanted to be known as the person that does that.
yeah. So in that scenario, it's like, okay, you can't have it both ways. You know, like you can't martyr at the grill,
Right.
right? And be the hero at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Which would you choose?
Yeah.
Who do you
And
want to
that's
be?
the thing is heroes don't get acknowledged, right? And that's what he needed more than anything was to be appreciated. He wanted to be appreciated.
And in that, that's fair. Then you ask for what you need. I would like to be appreciated for, because for me, I would be pretty direct, clear as kind. You're getting exactly what you're asking for. You're asking to be the lone hero standing at the grill, and everyone is letting you do that. So either do that and enjoy it for being of service, for being the best grill master in town or whatever that is, but don't do it with an agenda.
When you do something for people, do it because you really want to do it and don't expect to get anything else.
Yeah.
And his big thing too, the one that I'm thinking about now, I think the saying is called dry begging. Have you heard that before? Dry begging? It's when you don't ask for something, but you hint around it and then you get mad because they don't see you or hear you.
Yeah.
So he was always begging for something indirectly, and then he would get upset that his needs wouldn't get met from the people around him in his life. Yeah. He was a genuinely nice guy. The problem was that he did things beyond when he didn't want to do them anymore.
Martyr.
Yes, it is martyrdom. Yeah, for sure.
And also just feeling like he had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he felt like he had to. And he enjoyed doing things for people, but he didn't like the feeling that he had to. And that's what kept happening, where he felt like he had to.
And so in that instance, would you have suggested, why don't you just not barbecue at one of these events? Just see what it feels like. Just to be in and amongst the people enjoying themselves. Well, just give it a try.
Yeah.
You know?
That's really good, Heidi. And actually, one of the things that did happen was he was asked to grill for a shower. And he agreed to do it if other people did certain things that he would need them to do. And that worked. And it was really interesting because the people who helped him were the ones who saw how much he does. And they acknowledged him over and over because they were seeing what he was doing. And to me, it was about communicating your needs and delegating and breaking up how much you do, not overburdening yourself. But for him, coming out of it, what he expressed to me was more about, they see how hard I work.
Yeah.
The recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah. The effort.
And by him communicating, he got both.
So I wonder if his takeaway was, if I ask people to help me, not only will my job be easier, but they will recognize what I have to offer and how hard I work and what I do. It would, it would create, in essence, a team, which, maybe would have not made him feel isolated, right? Just to have more people there.
Yeah. I'm thinking that there was something about not wanting to ask for help that was going on.
Because then you feel like you're stepping out of your power, which is, I got this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The cheese stands alone over here. I got this.
Right.
Yeah.
He liked being called the nice guy. People would call him Smiley.
But he wasn't being real. That's why he was suffering. Let's make this really clear to anyone listening. He was being inauthentic. Right. And when we are inauthentic, we suffer. It's that simple. And everyone who is a people pleaser or has been, and a reminder, I'm in that camp, suffers. It is a role of suffering.
Yeah. And this is the thing. I think it's okay to be an agreeable. It is okay to be an agreeable person. I'm agreeable. I go with the flow. Things don't bother me. However, when it is something that is compromising, that's when you really have to communicate, because the people in your life, they don't know. No, you have no idea, because you've been this person who's just giving, and it really is on you.
Yeah. Oh, Smiley, he loves doing the grill.
Right.
Because they think that's what.
Yeah. Because he's playing that role. He is doing the role, but he's wearing a mask. He's not being authentically himself.
Yes.
Joe, get over here, flip the rest of these burgers. I'm going to go sit down in the shade. Keeping it real.
And when I think back on this person that I'm associating this case close to, is he did not have real intimate relationships and friendships. They were all very surface. And after we worked with each other, there was some more authentic, real connections that he had. I didn't know then what I know now, though, and especially looking back on it, there's a few things that I would have done differently. And I think I wrote some of the questions down that I would have asked, like, what does being the easygoing one protect you from? What unspoken rules are you living by in your relationship? What would it mean to ask directly for what you want without apology? I may have asked in one way or another, but I just didn't have the coaching approach that I have now.
So helpful. Interesting. Yeah, this is amazing. I want to announce something to everyone listening and watching. If you have been feeling inspired by the Lifing Coast to Coast podcast, you're not alone. And now you don't have to be alone, because we've been busy pouring our hearts into building the Lifing community, which is a safe online space where you can find real support every day for every season of your life. It's unlike anything out there. It's a platform built with love for people like you. So if you're interested, if you've been feeling inspired by what these two amazing coaches are saying, please go check out our website, lifing.services, for more information. We would love to see you there. All right. Well, this conversation is only just beginning, because healing from people-pleasing takes time and compassion and community. So please join us next time. We will continue the conversation on people-pleasing, peel back more layers, share stories, and explore how to say yes to yourself. We can't wait to see you there.
Yeah. Till next time. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Lifing Coast to Coast. Join us every Saturday for insightful, relatable, and lively discussions that empower and inspire.
Co-hostesses with the mostesses.
Woo! Okay, ready?
All right, I got kind of lighten up.
Is your gum gone?
You swallow. You recording? Okay.